This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. In an interview with Axios on Sunday, longtime Donald Trump supporter Anthony Scaramucci said that Republicans could be in a situation where they need to find a candidate who could replace Donald Trump on the ticket in 2020. Specifically, he said, quote, "We are now in the early episodes of Chernobyl on HBO, where the reactor is melting down and the apparatchiks are trying to figure out whether to cover it up or start the cleanup process. A couple more weeks like this and country over party is going to require the Republicans to replace the top of the ticket in 2020. He added that if Donald Trump doesn't reform his behavior, it will not just be me, but many others will be considering helping to find a replacement in 2020. Right now, it's an unspeakable thing, but if he keeps it up, it will no longer be unspeakable. The minute they start speaking of it, it will circulate and be socialized. We can't afford a full nuclear contamination site post-2020. These, yeah, no shit comments from Scaramucci came after he rightly described Donald Trump's visit to El Paso as a catastrophe. You know, these Trump visits to El Paso where he tried to meet with survivors of the attack only to be rebuffed by the victims who wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. Well, it didn't take long for Trump to become unhinged and obsessive about Scaramucci. He has tweeted several times about him in just a short time. On Saturday, he tweeted, quote, "Anthony Scaramucci, who was quickly terminated 11 days from a position that he was totally incapable of handling, even though he hired him, now seems to do nothing but television as the all-time expert on, quote, President Trump, unquote." Like many other so-called television experts, he knows very little about me other than the fact that this administration has probably done more than any other administration in its first 2.5 years of existence. Anthony, who would do anything to come back in, should remember the only reason he is on TV, and it's not for being the mooch. Well, first of all, quote, unquote, President Trump, that's like saying a guy who's not a doctor is a doctor. And then yesterday, he continued to lay his obsession with Scaramucci bare for the world to see. Quote, "Scaramucci, who like so many others had nothing to do with my election victory, is only upset that I didn't want him back in the administration where he desperately wanted to be. Also, I seldom had time to return his many calls to me. He just wanted to be on TV." Also, yesterday in the morning, Scaramucci went on CNN and doubled down on his Axios interview, saying that Donald Trump is disassembling and sounding more and more nonsensical.
Anthony, I just don't want to pass this by. So you are no longer an active supporter of President Trump and his re-election bid.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious from over the weekend. I mean, the guy's actually dissembling a little bit, and he's sounding more and more nonsensical. And, you know, we're sort of anesthetized to it, and people inside are watching, oh, yeah, that's just President Trump. Just let him act like that. But, you know, you're fracturing the institutions and all of the things that the country stands for. So that's not worth the economic policies. You know, that's not worth the GDP growth, which, by the way, is slowing down, and the stock market's exactly where it was a year ago. And I do think you have a bigger problem with the trade war than people think. The Fed is not cutting rates if the economy is doing super well.
So, Anthony.
So, listen, we should always be willing to give people the space to change their minds, encouraging them even. I mean, when someone brings on board new information, they should be able to change their minds with some freedom. Whether it be about human and civil rights, tax policy, gun policy, or any other critically important topic that we struggle with as a nation. So I'm not going to go too hard on Anthony, but I do have questions. What changed? Trump is Trump is Trump is Trump. Donald Trump hasn't changed one iota since he came down that escalator in June of 2015. He's the same small-minded, chaos-creating, bigoted, racist narcissist today that he was then. So what changed, Mooch? Is it that he finally turned his back on you like he's turned his back on so many others? You talk about putting country over party, but under Donald Trump, putting country over party hasn't been a part of the Republican repertoire at all. This seems to me to likely be one of those situations where Anthony Scaramucci has come to the right conclusion, but for entirely the wrong reasons. However, if he can be the spark that lights a fire under rank-and-file Republicans, a fire that creates light enough for them to see that which the rest of us have been seeing for years now, well, good. We need to put an end to the existential threat posed by Donald Trump.